the building blocks of a professional brand. Whether you're a startup or a business looking to rebrand, in this episode, we cover the steps that you need to take to truly build a timeless brand. Because with branding, if you do it right, you only gotta do it once. We move forward into the visual stuff, the creative and fun stuff. And at this point, we will start with sketchbook work. It's typically pen hitting the paper and really getting creative. But at the same time, you don't want to start this process until you've done your research and really understand what competitor brands out there exist. Because the last thing you want to do is create a logo that already exists. So it's very important that we do our due diligence. I cannot stress enough how important research is to really create something timeless, unique, and that'll resonate with your consumers. So also having an understanding of what is the niche market you're trying to target, who you're trying to connect with, what message you're trying to convey, what problem you're trying to solve. This is integral before we start designing, because the design adds meaning to the identity of the brand. So after the sketchbook work is done, typically the top selections are selected and presented to the client, and at this stage we vectorize to really visualize what that could look and feel like. Oftentimes a client needs to see what could a logo look on a business card, what a logo could look on stationary assets or signage, or what can it look like on web and mobile. Because the key is, if you can mock these logos up, it could really bring that logo to life, and now the client can really visualize what this logo might look like in their working environment or in a sales environment when they're communicating with their customers. So it's really important, if you want sign-off, to help them visualize. Don't leave so much room for imagination in the sense that they are having a hard time really picturing what that logo could look and feel like. So typically this process can go through a matter of a few revisions, and ideally select the top three, and through a process of elimination, we gradually get there. Once the logo is selected, we then develop what we call brand guide. Some people like to call this the brand Bible, because it sets the rules for all the assets accompanying that logo. So what I'm describing is the corporate colors, the typography, the sizing and dimensions for the logo misuse, because the last thing you want is for people to be stretching out your logo using different colors. That creates a lot of inconsistency in your brand and could lead to mistrust, because people resonate with something that is familiar and is consistent, and that on a subconscious level builds trust. So this brand guide is integral for a few different reasons. Let's say, for example, you're raising capital and you want to show the extent of your brand and how it could be applied to a variety of different industries or different merchandise or product lines. In this brand guide, you could cover all of those mock-ups. So for example, you could say, this is what our office is going to look like in New York. These are some of our products and some examples of what those renders could look like. These are our corporate colors, our typography. These are some renders of our prototype app. So the investor, when they look at this brand guide, it looks like you've really fleshed out the idea and the extent of your brand and how much market share it's really going to take. So it's really critical that you have a plan. Just like a business plan, the brand guide operates like the business plan for your visual identity. So really critical that you have that. Once we've established the brand guide, we can go ahead and start developing all the print and digital assets that follow those brand guides. And the cool part about this is, let's say you hire an in-house social media team, you could simply give them this brand guide so they can continue to create assets for your social media, for example, or stationary assets or marketing material. And that way they're consistently adhering to those guidelines to make sure that your message, your tone of voice, even the copywriting is always conveyed consistent with the brand identity and brand personality. After this, we definitely need a website, a place of contact where our customers can learn more about the company. And now, with COVID-19, it's become more and more difficult to have face-to-face interactions to really teach people about our brand. So oftentimes than not, the first point of contact is your website. We really believe that the website is a sales tool. And the reason we say that is because nowadays people don't have the patience to read through a ton of text, but visuals can communicate a message much faster. And the way you deliver a message on a Monday when you're fully rested, have tons of caffeine, is going to be different the way that you deliver a message on a Friday when you're a little burnt out. So we are creating quality control through your website so the message is conveyed consistently no matter who is communicating that. So for example, if you have a meeting with a potential partner, client, or investor, and you're trying to convey a part of your technology, well, you could reference a link in your website that has a video that really explains this in a more visually engaging way. And the customer, partner, investor can go ahead and learn more at their own pace because everybody's got different learning capabilities. So we really want to make sure that before we go into building the website, web developers are not website designers. So there's a clear difference there. They're very good at coding and getting something to be optimized and responsive, but they need a clear outline of what they need to design. So having a UI UX, which is user interface, user experience, and I'll explain to that in another video what that is. But basically it's how the user feels. It's the customer journey on the website and how they interact with it. And it's really important that we flush those ideas out before we enter development so that we can give them these wireframes that highlight exactly what each page is going to look like both on desktop and on mobile and different browsers. So you really have to think of all the devices out there and optimize your website for all of them. Because with Apple nowadays releasing new products almost every few months, you want to make sure that you have someone on retainer to do some website maintenance and make sure that it's consistent. So now that you have your wireframes fully fleshed out, you give a blueprint that is crystal clear to your web developers and they can go ahead and get to work. This will save you a lot of time and a lot of money because we're minimizing the trial and error between a web developer and a web designer, right? So they have a clear crystal outline of what needs to be done. Of course, before we start launching the website, there's a few things you might want to take a look at. Of course, you want to think of your SEO, search engine optimizations, and really creating and building those pages so that Google can recognize it. And we have to stay up to date with Google Trends because what I discovered is that Google has more employees than NASA. That's a lot of employees. So they kind of all have to justify their existence. So there's always updates happening and we want to make sure we stay up to that. We're big fans of developing websites in WordPress because there is a plugin that you could use called Yoast that gives you the red, yellow, or green light to show how well optimized your page is for SEO. So that could be an entire conversation which I would love to bring on my senior marketing director to speak a little bit more about that process. Before we launch the website, again, you want to make sure it's mobile responsive and that there's no bugs, everything is quality checked and ready to launch. It's always ideal if you're going to do a launch, do a brand launch and do a few teasers beforehand. So it's great to get involved in some PR, connect with certain influencers in the community. Now that of course really depends on the industry that you're operating in. Typically if it's more B2B, it's going to be a different strategy than B2C. So you really want to have a marketing director or a PR agent that can put together a pre-launch plan to really warm up the audience so that when you do launch, people are engaged, they're excited, and they're ready to learn more about your brand. I highly recommend following these steps. If you love this content, thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you have any thoughts to add, comment down below, and we'll see you on the next episode.